Then I would like to start the session. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, I guess, in Bangladesh time, and greetings to everybody who's from all over the world joining us in this session. I am Anu Joshi Shrestha, Enterprise and Value Chain Development Specialist here at ICIMOD, and it is a pleasure to welcome you all in this session on resilient entrepreneurship in Hindu Kush Himalaya, the larger impact of local-led adaptation. Thank you all for joining this session, and I would like to thank Gobeshona team for giving us the platform to reach out to so many of you all at your home, in the comfort at your home. So to really begin our session, let me just briefly introduce you to what the background of our session. Small and medium enterprises are life for farmers and artisans and other mountain in the mountains, and 95% of the private sector comprises of these small and medium enterprises in the mountain. However, they are very vulnerable to climate shocks and other shocks, and the impact is really high in their lives and livelihood. Therefore, it is an urgent to really look at how these community and these enterprise can absorb, adapt, and transform from these shocks and contribute to their social, economic, and environmental goals. Therefore, ICIMOD, Integrated Center for Mountain Development, who works at 8 countries from Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Bhutan, Myanmar, Nepal, China, India, if I've not missed all 8 of them. I think we all together, what we've actually looked at is how we can strive to develop resilient entrepreneurship ecosystem for sustainable and equitable livelihood in collaboration with all these 8 members country and the diverse partners that we have. Therefore, today's objective is to share evidence on the state of resilient entrepreneurship in HKH and showcase emerging trends, challenges, and opportunities, which helps us build a resilient entrepreneur ecosystem. The evidence generated during this session will be linked to regional and global platforms such as UNFCCC, COP16, and HKH to Glasgow. Touching on the agenda, we will have a keynote presentation on the importance of resilient entrepreneurship ecosystem in HKH, followed by the technical presentation on ICIMOD's experience on strengthening a resilient entrepreneurial ecosystem. We will then have a panel discussion to share experience from the region. Then we will have a virtual interactive session. Finally, we will have a summary and way forward, and then we will close this session. Therefore, without much ado, and with your permission, let me invite Nanki Kaur, Regional Program Manager of Adaptation and Resilience Building Program from ICIMOD, who I think she's been a very driven women leader at ICIMOD and very passionate about resilient enterprise topic. And it is my pleasure to invite Nanki for her keynote speech on resilient entrepreneurial ecosystem in HKH. Over to you, Nanki.
Thank you, Anu. And thanks for the welcome. And also, as you said, thank you to the Gobeshona team and to ICIAD for providing this opportunity. It's good to connect with all of you, even if it's virtual. Anu, can you let me know if you can see my screen? Thumbs up?
Yes, I can.
Thanks. All right, so I am going to attempt to provide a sort of snapshot to everybody on what we'll be discussing in our time together today. Like Anu said, this is an important topic for our region. Entrepreneurship is a key activity in the Hindu Kush Himalaya. So I'll focus on 3 things. First, just to provide the context of why we need to focus on resilient entrepreneurship. The second, I'll focus a bit on some of the work that we are doing with our partners in this area. And my third set will focus on opportunities to take forward actions as we move towards COP26, which is an important year for climate action and how we can feed into that dialogue. So those are the three things that I'm going to focus on. And to start with, in terms of the need for climate resilient entrepreneurship in the Hindu Kush Himalaya, the first point out here is to make the case. Sorry, I'm just trying to manage my screen as well. All right. So the first point that we'd like to make is that the Hindu Kush Himalaya is the pulse of the planet. It spans over a large geographic area across 8 countries and is home to 10 of the major Asian river systems and also home to 240 million people who live in the mountains and an additional 1.65 billion people who live downstream. So this is an important region in the world. In terms of enterprise development, the topic that we are discussing today, the Hindu Kush Himalaya region supports niche value chains, whether we're talking about tourism or a lot of the clean energy for the region, water, specific agricultural products, and also labor-based enterprises, which you'll hear more about. A lot of these are unique to our region. As Anu said, 95% of the private sector is made up of the micro, small, and medium enterprises, and a lot of these function in the informal sector. And when we are talking about climate action, the private sector is going to play a very important role in helping us transition to a low carbon or a climate resilient world. So this is an important stakeholder group to engage with and support when it comes to resilience. The third point out here that's important to highlight is that mountain value chains are vulnerable to climate and other shocks, be it floods or droughts, or as you see in this pandemic, which is also an example of a disruptive shock, can really impact these small enterprises greatly. And looking at the level of exposure, it's also important to highlight that entrepreneurs in our region don't have very little capacity to absorb or to adapt or to transform their value proposition when they're exposed to such high magnitude shocks. This is due to the fact because of the remoteness of the region or lack of access to services, be it clean energy or finance, and also due to the fact that very often indicators of poverty or exclusion are higher in our region as compared to the plains. So added to this point, just a snapshot of the climate emergency in our region. The only point out here to make is that even a 1.5 degree world is too hot for the Hindu Kush Himalaya. Due to elevation dependent warming, 1.5 degrees would mean 2.1 degrees in our region. But if you look at current emission scenarios, we are heading to a 5.5 degree world. In terms of what that means, it means a lot of snow melting, glacier melting, which, as you know, would also then result in very high impact floods and droughts as we move forward, which is something that we can already see in terms of an increase in disaster risks in our region, with women being more susceptible to these disasters. And also, please note, a lot of the enterprises in our region are women-owned and women-led. So the climate emergency is real and worrisome for us, which is why we are making a case that we do need to strengthen the resilience of enterprises. The second area that I said was to give you a snapshot of some of the work that we're doing on resilient mountain entrepreneurship. In terms of the participants who registered, a lot of you have also highlighted that this is something you'd be keen to learn more about. What do we mean by resilient entrepreneurship? What are we doing in this area? And that's what most of this session is structured around. So first, just since it is Gobeshona, which does focus on evidence and research, to start with is some of the framing that we've been using at ICIMOD. On the extreme right, you see how we are trying to define a working definition of resilient of enterprise resilient is in terms of the ability of an enterprise to to absorb, adapt, and or transform its value proposition in response to shocks and opportunities. So an example could be the ability of an enterprise to improve its productivity despite a climate shock. We then looked at then carried out a systematic review of literature to look at what are the characteristics, what enables an enterprise to be more resilient. And we focused a lot on the identity of an enterprise and also its orientation. So you have some of the characteristics outlined out here. For example, when you're talking about entrepreneurial orientation, a lot of the enterprises that are resilient have better knowledge and awareness of climate change, and then are able to design more responsive products and services. They are more aware of new customers in this space. They are able to provide green, they are able to assure green quality and resilience. And they also have very specific characteristics in their management capacity as well. So these are some of the pieces of evidence that are emerging in terms of what resilient enterprise looks like and what contributes to it. And in this area, the work that ICIMOD is doing is a lot around the development of mountain value chains, the development supporting mountain enterprises, and now a greater focus on working with the entire ecosystem itself. So these are some of the things we'll hear more about in this session. And finally, my last set is, like Anu said, the whole purpose of this dialogue is to take stock of what we know about resilient entrepreneurship, and then identify together actions that we can take forward to COP26. So to provide the space out here from our side at ICIMOD, we've been working in this area, and we now have we have the evidence to support ambitious climate action, and we also have the political will to take this forward. So we've got the HIMAP assessment, which looks at climate impacts in our region. We've then developed a HKH call to action, which identifies 6 areas to take forward. And last year we had a historic agreement where ministers from all 8 countries signed a declaration to take forward this HKH call to action. The details of this you can see a bit more in this slide. And on the right are some of the actions that are specific to climate action. And you can see out there, there's one of the 6 focuses specifically on resilient entrepreneurship as an area to take forward. And if you like, these are some of the things that we can think of together when we are thinking of what are the actions to promote resilient entrepreneurship. And just to highlight out here that currently this is the year that all the countries are looking at their climate policies or nationally determined contributions. Just to say, there are no targets in those for our 8 countries on resilient mountain entrepreneurship. So that's something we might want to promote or advocate. And within those targets, maybe a focus on targets around policy instruments like green standards for consumption and production, or targets around infrastructure to improve access to for clean energy, or digital services or platforms to aggregate a lot of these resilient enterprises. We could have targets around strengthened capacity and targets around scaling up finance for resilient entrepreneurship in our region. And I'm going to leave you with that timeline. These are some of the events and dialogues that we'll be organizing, and we welcome your input and collaboration to generate the evidence for these actions, and also then to establish a network of actors who will promote these actions in this year. With that, thank you, and over to you, Anu.
Thank you so much, Nanki. It is indeed climate emergency is here, and we all have to act proactively. And therefore, I think it is very important that we're discussing about this topic on making a resilient enterprise and trying to get as much evidence as possible so that we can take it up to the higher levels as well. With this, we will have thematic presentations, and to start our thematic presentation, I will be starting my presentation, followed by my colleague, Anu Lama. So let me start. So I'll be presenting on building resilience, resilient enterprise in the HKH, evidence, approaches, and direction. As I said, I'm Anu Joshi, Shrestha Enterprise and Value Chain Development Specialist here at ICIMOD, and I'll also share my experiences. And I've worked in ICIMOD for about 10 years now. So the journey and the evidences that we've collected through various projects that we had and various initiatives we have in ICIMOD. Just take you through that journey of mine, and then how the concept evolved over the past year. So in terms of the evidence, as Nanki said, small and medium enterprises contribute significantly to national and local economies of HK. We did an intensive study in terms of how do we make resilient enterprise, what was the focus of governments, various government in terms of MSME, and where the change and is happening in terms of collecting informations and data in HKS. So you can see, like, 22% of the GDP in Nepal comes from MSMEs and so on. So therefore, mountain enterprises, if you see, like, from the study as well, it is shown that it's highly exposed to climate and other risk, and therefore it is a need of an hour, as also expressed by Nanki, that we really build the capacity of these MSMEs, entrepreneurs in the mountain, to observe, adapt, and transform to the shocks and respond to these shocks as well. So therefore, as our in terms of the resilient enterprise, the definition that we've come out with is to observe, adapt, and transform its value proposition to response to climate shocks. So that's where we were heading towards. Just to give you us the journey that I went through being here in ICIMOD, from sustainable livelihood to resilient entrepreneurship in HKH. It is basically also the evidence that is generated, and also the adaptation at the local level as well, how people perceived the interventions that we tried to do, how they acknowledged it, and how they adapt to these interventions that we did in the mountains. So initially, when I started in 2009, the idea was to really look at sustainable livelihood, and poverty, income, and capacity was the major thrust and the focus of it. So gradually over the past years, we tried to be more focused in our interventions, not being very scattered, and try to really make impact in lives and livelihoods of people. So then we focused on high value products, value chain promotion, high value product promotion at that point of time, where we really looked at the community and what are the high value products there, and also creating a level playing field for mountain entrepreneur in business. So instead of the self-sufficient economy, a little bit of commercialization needed to happen on the mountains. So that's where was focused, and the lessons from there was, as we were making interventions, that market actors was missing, and then we really needed to bring on board these market actors as well. And also temperature change felt in the mountain was affecting a lot in lives and livelihood of people. Then we looked at this approach to how do we bring in these market actors on board, and we worked on a value chain development approach, where we brought all the stakeholders from government, private sectors, and community all together under one platform, and tried to really look at these high value products value chains, so that it would really make a lot of contribution to their income structure structure and income sources of the community, as well as also leads towards our focus that was there in terms of poverty alleviation. So that was the approach then, and later, like, you know, in that we also realized that if you see in the picture, there were mostly men who would come to this interaction program to collaborate and cooperate in terms of cooperation. So we really thought there was a necessity for women to really make interventions in terms of women. And we also, as we were doing the study in terms of what was the climate impact, we also realized that women are more vulnerable to climate hazards there. So then we moved on to making these value chain more inclusive and looked at community enterprises, because individually women wouldn't come forth. So if we put them in the group and then register them as enterprise, there was much more acceptance from them as well as from the community. Financial literacy was very, very important, and building network collaboration and cooperation could happen when, like, you know, we really focused on and women and women's group as well. So in that case, the lesson, I think, was also climate was changing, and it was really impacting both men and women equally, and more so women. But then it is very true, and it was really an emergency that was really happening at this time period. And ICIMOD was really focusing on how do we really bring about change, and how do we really design intervention to fight climate change. Therefore, we got into resilient and inclusive value chain design, where we talked about organic and green businesses, which has lesser footprints, carbon footprints, and we also talked about digital technology and knowledge that could manage production and consumption system, and also in terms of to become really resilient, diversification of income was a very big necessity. So we also then focused on a little bit of diversifying. Initially, we said high value product and specific. Then now we deviated a little more, and then turned into diversification of income as well. So there also we really thought that ITC and capacity was very, very important for farmers to transition into entrepreneurs. After that, there was a big focus in terms of green and resilient, making green and resilient enterprise from value chain. At each node of the chain, there were enterprises, and we really needed to focus on these enterprises at each node of the chain, which really supports the sector as well as poverty reduction as well. So basically in this, we looked at climate resilience, socio-economic resilience, and future resilience, where energy, water, farming system was looked at under climate resilience, and infrastructure, economy, gender, institutions who are focused under socio-economic resilience, and in future resilience, digital, financial safety, and disaster preparedness were some of the things that we really focused on. Here, we really looked at how do we build an enterprise, and how do we strengthen entrepreneurship ecosystem, mentoring, and capacity. Also looked at how do we make these small businesses bankable businesses there. But then the focus also, the lessons was that, you know, we really needed also to take these initiatives at a global level as well, so that the change happens faster and easier. And therefore, in 2020, 2021, we really focused on resilient entrepreneurship, where keywords such as, like, you know, attributes, I would say, such as mentorship, innovation, robustness, safety net, networks, collaboration, all these aspects really came from the experience from the past. So at each level, like, you know, we really collated all the lessons that came from, and then we thought these are probably some of the areas where we should focus on to make resilient entrepreneurship. And therefore the approach really came into the picture, and therefore, we, as Nanki said, the focus was entrepreneurial ecosystem. Our orientation was important, market orientation was important, and capacity management was very, very important to really lead to create economic value, social value, and environmental value. So this approach, we will be really putting it forward, and if there is any suggestion, we'll add on to this, and then carry this forward in the coming years to come, focusing on resilient enterprise. And therefore, if you see, it is all building on our past. How do we build resilience of the enterprise, and mostly led locally, and the local adaptation happening, and the learnings that came from the local people and from the community themselves and at the local level. So I think the learnings and then the approaches that has been developed is really rooted and grounded and came from the grassroots levels. With this, I would like to thank you, and then say that, let's protect the pulse, and then let's make our resilient enterprise, build the capacity of resilient enterprise, and help mountain enterprise to further flourish in future. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to request Anu Lama to take this forward and give her presentation. Anu Lama is our tourism specialist and very, very keen in terms of developing entrepreneur ecosystem in HKH. Anu, over to you.
Can you please remove your slides presentation? A very good afternoon and as well good morning to all the wonderful audiences joining us today. My name is Anu Lama, and I work here at ICIMOD as tourism specialists. I would like to really welcome all our audiences to this second and the last technical presentations of the session. So in this presentation, what I am going to do, let me just upload it here. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So my presentation is again one of the to promoting climate resilient tourism entrepreneurships in the Hindu Kush Himalayan region. How I've structured my presentation is as follows. First of all, I would really, I'm going to give you a brief context behind the need for looking at this whole concept approach and how this has been practiced on the ground as an interventions from tourism lens. Then I would also then present two cases from two of our regional member countries, Bangladesh and Nepal. Then with a summary of highlighting what are the key points to take note of when it comes to really understanding the idea of climate resilient tourism entrepreneurship in the Hindu Kush Himalaya. So I will just highlight some of the key points so that for our own reminders, as well as to really help us guide the following subsequent sessions. Let me start. Not able to transition slides. Transition. Did you see the slides coming? Mm-hmm. Somehow it's stuck, right?
Can you unshare and share again?
Yeah. Just as excuse for the little bit of technical glitch here. So let me once again unshare and then. Is it visible now?
Yes, but full screen.
Yes. Okay. So just to give you a very context as to why climate resilience matter for tourism when it comes from the resilience perspective is that, 2020 has been a year of an unprecedented year for all of us. But even before 2020, for the people, the mountain communities of the Hindu Kush Himalayan region is that, our lives and livelihoods has been equally challenging, if not more. So that means that how most of our mountain communities who are dependent on tourism, which is one of the mainstay of the economy and the businesses, is very much impacted by climate shocks. And we have also seen that we are really heading to a world that's going to be warm. There will be disruptions in monsoons and also some of the extreme events. That's going to really be the very much scenarios in which we are going to operate our businesses in our landscape. So it is important to really be reminded of why this session and also this context of taking local actions on climate change is important, primarily because, again, needless to say, our previous speakers have also stated that the dependency of the mountain communities, particularly when you look from tourism lens, is very high. And also that, what has also taught from this pandemic experiences is one of the most vulnerable sector is the tourism, and, affecting not only the income and economy of the country, but also the businesses and communities who directly depend on this sector. So what does this tell is that we would really have to be looking at the whole issues of building resilience of the enterprises from a new lens, the one that really helps us to understand the full gamut of its impacts, as well as the solutions that could be driven. And so it has to be really reconceived as operated in a more pragmatic as well as in a more radical manner. But at ICIMOD, what we say is that also every crisis brings opportunities. So we take climate crisis and pandemics as one of the opportunities to really advance this whole agenda of building resilience of the tourism entrepreneurs, primarily from, for the purpose of really having this whole idea of taking this business back to normal through green recovery, so that we have a better and much more stronger tourism flourishing in the context. But one more thing that also is very encouraging for people who are engaged in this topic is that, there is also an increased recognition among different governments, the role that is played by climate actions, particularly in regards to green recovery of tourism. So these are the very important trend as well as opportunities which would be very good to capitalize when we talk about the idea of really promoting climate resilience in tourism. So our previous speakers have already established the whole, the concept of resilient entrepreneurship. So I would just like to add on to that. When it comes from a tourism lens, the whole purpose of really building climate resilience is really looking at coming up with an innovations. And primarily, the innovations really depends on three critical points, which I have highlighted here. One is really trying to build a sustainable business solutions. And it could be, the entry point could be value chain, renewable energy technology, and ICT does become a very cross-cutting sort of a tool that really helps to elevate this whole approaches. And platform, that is also one of the most important areas to really look into, precisely because of the nature that it is one of the most strategic sort of arrangement or approach that allows smaller businesses and communities to really take part. And last but not the least, partnership among the different stakeholders. And as Nanki has also highlighted, the fact that we operate in a very systemic environment. So the whole purpose of really providing solution is not only linked to the technology per se, but entire system that builds around to support, right from policy to investment to enterprise development. And so as we have already mentioned, ICIMOD, climate change and sustainable livelihood is one of its priority and mandates. So we have two cases which I'm going to present here. One is from Bangladesh, the other one is from Nepal. Bangladesh, I really wanted to highlight this pilot we did in Munlai. Munlai is one of the upcoming destinations in Chittagong Hill Tracks. So this pilot really demonstrates the case of really promoting the climate resilient entrepreneurship, looking at from the value chain perspective. So the whole context behind why this was needed was, again, this is also one of the important countries which is being exposed to the climate impacts. But also, what is very unique to this place is also that there are most of the people who depend on livelihoods is very much limited to agriculture or to a larger extent, and also handicrafts and so on. So there are lack of income generation opportunities, as well as diversifications of the businesses, and also jobs is something. So this is the rationale within which we sort of collaborated with government, private sectors, and the communities of Moonlight to really come up with the business solutions. And that is to really develop Moonlight as a destination, developing all the products and services, branding, and also along this line, institutionalizing the whole the whole how do we say, the communities and other organization, which is very critical in managing these areas. So this has been one of the success stories in which we started in 2016 as an ideas. By within 1 year, we were able to really pilot this whole concept, and has been successfully handed over, and is now Moonlight is one of the most flourishing community destinations in Chittagong Hill Tracts, and for Bandarbhan also. The second pilot, which I'm going to share here, is from Nepal, and here the hub is the platform through which we are trying to really promote this whole concept of building a resilient enterprise among tourism entrepreneurs. And here the entry point is renewable energy and energy efficient solutions. We have this whole concept of Tourism Hub is actually promoting this innovations in tourism, and now here in our context is really looking from the business perspective. So this is an 18 months long program where a group of 8 companies have become a part of this whole incubation processes, in which they are being mentored, their capacities has been built, along with the networking with various stakeholders and business, providing business solutions. In terms of participations, the different types of companies, followed by participations of women, which is almost around 30% of it, and along with the people, you can see in the slides, like the companies representing come from a diverse geographic scale as well as ethnicity background. So 40% of those companies attending this are also are receiving this whole programs. Just to give you a snapshot of the collaborations we are talking about. So this is, again, we have different players, as we want to say, in an entrepreneurial ecosystem, right from implementing partners to knowledge, capacity, strategic partners. So they all are providing, collaborating to really co-design, co-develop, and also mentor the companies to come up with a sustainable business solutions, which would be taken up to accelerate in the last phase of this business incubation program. So having said that, I really wanted to conclude this session by summarizing key points. Again, I want to highlight the fact that, in the midst of this complex challenges brought by climate as well as pandemic, tourism is one of the worst affected sectors, but we have not lost the game or war yet, precisely for the fact that we have opportunities that is primarily coming from the possibilities of taking local actions on the ground, as well as the innovations that is happening to build back better tourism. And again, just to remind ourselves that because this technology, or let's say, as a business solutions, technology per se, it's not enough on its own, because of the whole systemic nature of the entrepreneurial capacity, entrepreneurial practices that's going to happen. So that's why one thing that really would like to highlight from this is that this whole process is a very collaborative aspects of co-designing, co-developing, and co-managing this the whole business solutions development processes. In that, what I would also like to highlight is that any interventions that is going to be taking place in the local community has to be very much looked from the holistic and dynamic perspective. Last but not the least, what I would like to also highlight here is that from the various deliberations, it has been made clear, and also from our 2 cases, is that the local-led interventions are very much important to really advance the voices as well as agendas of the grassroots communities, especially now from a tourism tourism perspective to the regional and global platform. And in this regard, we really would like to thank Gobeshona to providing that precise platform to really reach out to the global audience from global audience. So having said that, I think I have concluded slides. Thank you so much. And I give this back to Anu.
Thank you, Anu, for really bringing that perspective of how tourism can be supported through enterprise development and our partners in the region, and also how we're working on the ground. With this, I think if there are any questions for these two technical sessions, please share with us on the chat box so that we will look at those chat box, and then we will answer in those chat box as well. If our panelists, if we can not answer at this point of time, if I'm not doing it, then I'll certainly do it in a few minutes time. So with that, let me start our very, very interesting session. And I also am looking forward to this session as well. Our panel discussions from where we will get experiences from the region as well. So we have in this panel discussion our entrepreneur who actually really worked on the ground, and then they'll showcase their stories as well. So from Bhutan, Bangladesh, India, and Nepal. In this panel, we will both Anus, you heard from both of us, and we will be moderating this session. And I will start with ICA Foundation, ICA Chocolates. And there will be 3 questions. So we will give around 2 minutes each for these 3 questions. And we will then move on to another entrepreneur who's going to share their story. So with that, I think let me start with ICA Chocolates. Are you ready, Kinley Ji? If you can turn on your video as well. I've known if all of the panelists can switch on the video, it would also be really nice to see you all and then talk to you here. So Kinley Madam, I mean, I can see you now. Good to see you, and I've been a very big fan of yours. Kinley Peldon, actually, she was working, she's also known as a chocolate lady of Bhutan, and she also was a past president of entrepreneur associations there in Bhutan. She started her journey, I think, being a very high-level official in government, then leaving that with inspiration from her daughter, and then starting her own startup from ICA Chocolates, and also a very, very strong and very aspiring, I think, entrepreneur as well as a mentor. She's actually mentored so many of the young entrepreneurs there, and as a president of association also really tried to brand Bhutan in such a way, and I'm really proud of her. And I would really like to then give this floor to Kinley Madam, if you want to say something about yourself as well.
Okay, thank you, Madam Anu, for a very, very encouraging introduction for me. And thank you for this forum to be able to share, share how we are adapting to the changes like climate change, which like all these impending problems that our world is facing, like at our own individual level, how we are individual level and in our own individual capacity, how we are gearing up. And the most obvious,
I think then I just an introduction in terms of ICA Chocolate, but then let me then get into the question itself, what climate impact do enterprise face in your country? As you know, we've been building a case in terms of how climate has been affecting enterprises. So my first question to you would be, what climate impacts do enterprises face in your country?
Like right now, like entrepreneurship itself is a very like in a very infant stage in Bhutan. So like many of us entrepreneurs, like we're like 3 to I think like maybe 1 to 10 years into the business, and it is very short time to feel the impact of the climate change and all that. So, but over a long term, I think it is possible to uh, state the impact. What are the impact on the entrepreneurship like, and but some of the indicators of climate change, the symptoms, it is obvious as we observe around, like there have been like recession of glaciers like 30 to 60 meters per decade. So that comes to like, if you just linearly divide, about 3 to 6 meters per year. And there's also been like observation of erratic rainfall and snowfall. Sometimes we get snowfall even in March, April, and rainfall during when it is needed by the farmers, it doesn't occur, but it comes on maybe during harvest time, and it spoils the harvest. And yeah, and also like diseases like in crops like citrus greening, in citrus, like citrus greening, and even in chili and rice and all that, it has been quite prevalent, and it can be uh, one of the impact of climate change. And like we have been observing like, and also hearing from the farmers, like drying up of springs and aquifers in the local areas. So we are actually in a mountain country, we are known for having spring water and aquifers, and they have been drying up in some places, and even rendering some villages like they don't have water, and also like for agriculture and farming, like they don't get water. And
Okay. Yeah.
also like in recent years there have been incidences of flash floods, like taking away, not just damaging the crops, even taking away the topsoil, which has been there for a year. Like it took ages to build that topsoil. So right now we don't feel, but down the generation, I'm sure that we'll feel that impact very soon.
I think we're also feeling it right now as well, like, with pandemic happening and all the production system getting haywire, and, the whole value chain gets disrupted because of all these incidents that you're talking about. So, of course,
Yeah.
it's such a good insight from your side, like, how climate actually is affecting, but the enterprise might not know it as of now, but then it is actually affecting them every day. So with that, let me get into another questions in terms of how do you strengthen the climate resilience of your enterprise? You brought a lot of topic in terms of spring revival thing and all. We did quite a bit of that in Bhutan as well, together with Startup Center and Ministry of Agriculture as well. So in your enterprise, like, how do we then build that resilience aspect to your enterprise? What do you think of that? How do you think we can do it?
Actually, the resilience and all this, it is like at a government level, it is already mainstreamed in the 5-year plans, and also it has been supported by donor agencies, and especially with ICIMOD through your mountain resilience solution program, like especially for the startups, like we have been benefited, and I'm one of the beneficiaries of um, the mountain resilience solution. And like through that, like we had at 2 programs, 2 flagship programs, like that is for entrepreneurship in the Ministry of Economic Affairs, and also in the organic flagship program in Ministry of Agriculture. Through the Ministry of Economic Affairs, like there has been mentoring system that is being strengthened, and that is necessary because like we need to strengthen our capacity in terms of technical guidance, as well as like for networking and like, yeah, and also on policy support and all that, like. And also there has been like support in terms of business health checkup, so at least we know, like as a startup, we know where we are and where like it gives us a baseline to set our target. And there have been a lot of advocacy materials also that is being to promote the green businesses and also to reinforce social networks that we have and also to build our resilience. And like resilience building, like what we see it as is like through diversification, through network support, through technical sound technical knowledge. So these are the elements that is being provided by the stakeholders like the Minister of Economic Affairs and Minister of Agriculture and through the support. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I think it is such a pleasure to have you as mentor as well in our mentorship program, and also as a startup, like doing the health checkup and everything. I think it is really we are walking together in this journey of making each enterprise, the green enterprises, more resilient. And thank you so much for being with us throughout this journey. My last question is 3 actions that you think that climate resilient to strengthen climate resilient of the mountain enterprise in future, and who should be doing these 3 actions so that we can also take it up to a global regional forums as well. So if you could suggest 3 actions to us.
So on the policy level, like I feel that Minister of Agriculture and Minister of Economic Affairs, they should be the leading agency. And like on the policy, like what I actually that will actually come in the finance also, but it may cover in the policy also, because like so many climate smart innovation and innovation or any like innovations that come up, like because of the risk factor and all that, like it cannot take off from the very beginning. Mm-hmm. So how to render immunity and more conducive environment to bring up such innovation, and and that will cover the even in the finance also. And on the second is the finance part, and finance, it is to bring up those innovation and to take care of the risk and also to help in the scaling up. And here, like especially in particular to Bhutan, like for the finance part, Royal Monetary Authority and international organizations, and also like other organizations that are funding that are involved in funding. Mm-hmm. And thirdly, it is the platform where platform to so that people platform to network and innovate, and all the, I think here like all the enablers in the ecosystem should be responsible for that. And especially in addition to Minister of Economic Affairs and Minister of Agriculture, even Minister of Labor and Human Resource also, they are also involved in entrepreneurship training and so many supporting activities. And in addition to that, in terms of platform, even Lodin Foundation, which Lodin Foundation is also involved in financing as well as providing platform for entrepreneurship. So also like in terms of platform, it should be even rolled out even to the district levels and also to the schools and institutes.
True. Thank you so much, Kelly, Madam. I think it is really a pleasure and lots of insight from your end. I would really like to summarize it in a way that, like, there is a need for that ecosystem, and there is a need for collaboration with all the partners that are there in this ecosystem, as well as government should be really focusing on access to finance, access to technology, innovation that is happening, promotion of innovations that is happening. I think it is such a rich depth informations that we got from you, and thank you so much for being with us. With this, I would like to hand over to Anu Lama to carry this panel discussion forward. Anu, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Anu. That was a very wonderful interactions that we had with our first panel members. I would now like to really welcome one of our partners coming all the way from India, Mr. Shripati Harikal. He is the program manager of Selco Foundations. As we all have been informed, we have 6 minutes that is given to all our panel members to answer each questions. However you divide your time, it's up to you. But let me just start once again with the very first questions, which is about trying to really understand the context upon which Selco Foundation is operating when it comes to resilient entrepreneurship, especially when it comes from climate change perspective. My question to you is, what sort of a climate impacts that Selco Foundation is really trying to tackle in the landscape that you operate? And while answering this, can you also quickly introduce yourself and then give me your answers? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. I hope I'm audible. Is it fine?
Yes, Shripati, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Anuji, and for ICIMOD and everyone for giving this opportunity. So I think for Selco, I'm Shripati. I work with my colleagues here for the global SDG 7 Hubs team, where we look at how do we sort of look at the learning that Selco has been having over a decade and to replicate it with local partners in different geographies. When it comes to I think the climate change aspect for Selco Foundation, it is very critical because when we say that sustainable energy can be that catalyst to bring in resilience for the communities, it is a sort of a three main sort of parameters that we look at: the social sustainability, the financial sustainability, as well as the technological. So we look at all the three sort of sustainability coming in for the communities when we talk about a solution being making sense for the communities. And when it comes to, I think, the climate change impact, we really I mean, Selco Foundation works across very vulnerable geographies from northeastern part of India to eastern part of India and part of southern India as well, where we work with not just the local energy enterprises, solar energy enterprises, but also with a number of micro livelihood enterprises as well. So some of the impacts that you've seen, especially in the last year with COVID coming in across the world, we've seen how the supply chains are broken for these the local sort of enterprises. I mean, it could be an agri community, it could be an agri enterprise in the eastern part of India, or it could be an energy enterprise in the northeastern part of India. And not just that, but also how it has actually reduced the cash flows. I mean, it could be a hit from a cyclone that happened in Odisha, or it could be the COVID-19 impact that hit across the world. So I think one of the things that becomes very critical for us is to build the safety nets for the poor. And when I say poor, it's it could be from a local sort of micro enterprise to a community which is in the remotest part of India. And what we've seen is actually these disasters really breaking the safety nets for these for the community. So I think that's in general, but probably for the second question I could be a little more specific and go in terms of some of the things that we've done as well.
Yeah, thank you, Shripati. You really presented a very, clear picture of the conditions that we as a people who are committed to providing livelihoods to the mountain communities has to struggle and tackle in the particularly more complex driven by the climate change as well as the pandemics, which you've already mentioned. And I also like the fact that you highlighted that solution has to be really looked from a holistic perspective, and that the impacts are disrupting the supply chains, but what it really is also affecting as the safety nets. So you have, with this rich learning, probably try to innovate some of your approaches as to how do you tackle this in a more complex as well as a holistic manner, right? So
Sure.
my question to you is really, what is Selco Foundation that is doing to really bring the communities to the whole aspects of developing the resilience in terms of the enterprise?
Right. Thanks for the question. I think for us, it really is at the heart of our work to build that resilience against the climate change impact. So one of the I think the core philosophies for Silco Foundation here is to look at what we call as the ecosystem approach, where we really try to build and strengthen the local sort of enabling environments around the enterprise, right? So if I can take a specific example, of our eastern part of India, Odisha, or even the other places where we have intervened with our decentralized agricultural cold storage solution. Now, because of climate change, because of increased temperature, the farmers are really facing an issue in terms of the storage of the fresh products. It could be fruits, it could be vegetables, and I mean that's one angle, right? But when it's actually compounded with COVID-19, so what happened was for a lot of these agri enterprises, for a lot of these farmer producing organizations, it was very critical that they had the market access, immediate market access, in all the seasons. But COVID-19 really, as we all know, it broke the supply chain, right? So there was no immediate market. And also, even if it was there, they had to do distress selling of the products, right? Now, in one of the things that we're really sort of taking forward is the whole working with the local sort of, ecosystem. It could be a local NGO, it could be with the local, sort of government. And we intervene with the, sort of developing, establishing the decentralized solar agriculture cold storage solutions. These sort of 5 metric ton capacity cold storage solutions have actually brought in the resilience in terms of giving the value addition for the farmers to keep their product there and sell it whenever the market is available or whenever the transportation opens up. But not just that, and also giving opportunities for farmers to sort of sell it when the prices are right. So for this to happen, we have to sort of work very closely with the local government. It could be the local panchayat, because when we are talking about a decent agriculture cold storage solution, it's capital intensive, right? So it will have to have sort of sort of right financial model, right? I mean, technology, yes, but along with that, the right technology, right financial, as well as the delivery models. So when it's actually sort of owned by a farmer producing organizations, rightly sort of supported by the local governments and local NGOs, and as well as the technology vendors, whom we sort of bring them together to develop the solution. So this is one of the specific examples which connects both to COVID-19 as well as the disaster. The second point I would want to talk about is actually how do you look at the enterprises in diversifying their product portfolio? I think it becomes very critical when it comes to the resilience against climate change as well as the pandemics. To give sort of, if I can take a specific example, during the 19, there were these local enterprises, solar energy enterprises in the northeastern part of India or eastern part of India. They actually sort of diversified sort of their portfolio to look at probably a sanitizing door, or it could be to look at powering the COVID-19 healthcare centers. So you're really not looking at only the home lighting solutions as your sort of portfolio, but you also look at the other sort of portfolios that are very relevant for that particular situation. And also there are a lot of these micro sewing machine entrepreneurs that we work with. They actually diversify to sort of start stitching the masks and other sort of products that are relevant for the situation. So I think it's really to build that local decentralized ecosystem as well as the product diversification. And finally, I think our work with the REACH program, where we are working with ICIMOD and Nepal community, where we're actually looking at sort of looking at what are all the different ecosystem, different sort of pieces around the energy, around the enterprises in Hindu Kush Himalaya region, but focusing on Nepal right now, and to see what aspects of sort of what are the gaps in those ecosystems. It could be financing, it could be training and capacity building, it could be technologies, policies, and then actually sort of working together with the partner like in ICIMOD and Nepal community and others to see what sort of programs could actually make sense over the long term to make sure that the resilience is built for for these local enterprises. So I think this program is very critical from Silco Foundation's Global SDG7 Hubs program, because it's to really look at sort of how do we look at Nepal as an example for having that resilient enterprises ecosystem for the region. So yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was also very elaborative, presentations of what interventions or approaches that you have taken in relation to building entrepreneurship's resilience. I would also like, you've touched upon three critical areas, right? So one is all about providing the decentralized solutions. A solution itself is also not enough, but you need to have also the ability to diversify the offerings or the products, especially in the mountain context. But then also taking these two, also learning that you've also given an example of how you're partnering with the regional members like ICIMOD through Reach, and taking it, to the global platform like SDG 7 Hub. So I think I would really like to ask this, the third, which is important question, is really taking this India, Nepal, and then the global SDG, right? There's 3 layers of area where you can make an impact. So how would you really, based on this experiences, what 3 important actions that think it's important to take, and who should really take this forward or implement this? Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for the question. I think it's probably the most relevant question, considering the context. Where I think one of the main things is actually, sort of nurturing the local innovation, because nobody understands the need of a local community better than the local sort of innovators. And I know that, but if I can take an example of the Nepal, foundation, the NIC, which actually sort of looks at, building the local innovation, because what happens is when you have these local innovators looking at building these local solutions.
Oh, we lost you, Sripati. Probably, I can't see him either. Probably the internet. Sripati, are you there?
Anyone else? Ask anyone else.
Anu, you're on mute.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, yes, we can hear us, Anudhi. Anulamadi, let's move to the next panelist.
Yeah. So when he joins, then we probably, if we have time, we'll ask him quickly. I think this is a very good setup, because now the panel members that I would really like to invite is Dr. Padmakshi Rana, who is the Deputy Directors of the program that in institutions called Nepal Communitaire. Padmakshi, thank you for your time, and also for the work that you do, on the Nepal Communitaire. This is a very vibrant and dynamic working environment through which you are trying to develop, the whole innovations in relation to businesses in supporting the entrepreneurs. So before I really go into the questions, Selco Foundation has also set some of the tone. Probably that's something for us to also learn, and also for Nepal Communitaire. The questions that to you is, as an individual who's really committed to really develop the business acumen and models for the enterprise, and particularly from Nepal Communitaire's perspective, what are the challenges, especially in regards to the impacts that you feel, that you hear from the enterprises to who you are associating to build this innovation program?
Thank you very much, Anu. Before I start, I'd like to thank the conference organizers and ICIMOD, and especially Reach, for bringing us all together in this very insightful platform. My name is Padmakshi. I work with the incubation team at Nepal Communitaire. Nepal Communitaire is an innovation-led community hub that supports startups and SMEs to develop viable solutions, generate revenue, and create jobs. Our attempt is to understand and integrate innovation across products, services, business models, and systems, whilst with a vision to prove that Nepal is a land of opportunities. And I think because of where we stand in how we look at innovation and how we look at sustainability and enterprises, that's how this whole collaboration came together. Anu, getting to your point around the impacts, I think to further emphasize some of the points that has been mentioned in earlier presentations and by panelists before me, along with our observation of the tourism hub enterprises, given the harsh and changing weather conditions, especially during winter, increasing national disasters around floods and landslides, and the varied terrain in which our tourism hub enterprises operate. Two areas really tend to stand out. And these are the two that has been standing out based on our work. There could be a myriad other issues that come across, but the first one is energy availability and security, which we have realized is fundamental for the enterprises that we work with, and that compounded by the limited reach and fluctuation of electricity from the central lines, right, which tends to cause voltage fluctuation, damaging appliances, which then requires a lot of time to be replaced or maintained. Similarly, the second one is the use of plastic bottles for safe drinking water, especially in the mountain areas where our trekking companies operate, as well as in areas in the plains where one of the resorts also operates, and the plastic bags. So these two are really a fundamental point of issue for the enterprises that we work with, because this waste tends to generally get incinerated, contributing towards emissions and waste. And lastly, I would like to also emphasize the fact how the pandemic has had significant impacts on the revenues and employment of the organizations that we work with. Thanks, Anu.
Yeah, thank you, Padmakshi. You really highlighted the very, the nerve of the issues, especially when it comes to promoting sustainable tourism in our landscape, particularly in the mountain context. So the whole ideas of how the climate change can be one of the bottleneck, especially in regards to the businesses, because tourism is one of the sector that has a lot of dependency on energy, right? And you have already said
Yes.
energy security and availability is one of the issues. And another point that you really highlighted was about the issue of wastes. And probably these are the two areas when you look from an opportunity perspective could also be turned into something, solutions, right?
Absolutely.
So from your perspective, given this context and background, what is Nepal community is really trying to do, or to address the emerging issues, but really bringing in the entrepreneurs and helping them to come up with the solutions through your incubation program. So what activities or approaches that you have taken to really help us address these issues?
Thanks, Anu. I think just to, before I highlight the work that we are doing, just to pick up on what you mentioned, a very crucial part is like, these are challenges, but we can collectively look at it as opportunities. And I think that's what the whole Tourovation Hub program is about, looking at these challenges, turning the negatives into positives through more enhanced value exchanges. And now coming towards what we at Nepal Community in our very humble way are trying to do is really working and learning from the 8 enterprises that are with us and from the broader business ecosystem. And so there are 4 points I would really like to highlight. Is one is beginning to support these enterprises in designing and developing what we call resilient business models, right? I mean, we've seen with the crises that are happening, natural or otherwise, how are organizations, especially in the tourism sector in Nepal, how are they going to be adapting to it? Is really now this sort of a platform gives them an opportunity, and for people like us to work with them and co-create solutions. So really look at what does resilience mean for each and every enterprise, right? The definition is going to be different for of our enterprises where one is in Langtang, one is in Mardi, to another enterprise that's working in Chitwan, or to one of our other member participant of the hub, a cooperative, right? So what does this really mean? They really to literally unpackage and understand the mindset and behavior of the customers and design resilient businesses, right? It's fundamental for that. And likewise, associated to that is the innovation that lies in value, right? I mean, with Reach does work a lot around the value network system, and how do we look at it? How do we innovate value, right? Not just looking at it from the perspective looking at it from the perspective of all three pillars of sustainability: environmental, social, and economic, right? So this is, I think, just to summarize it, really the design and development of resilient business models. What does it look like? We're also learning along with the enterprises that we work with. The second point is knowledge sharing, really, and that is, and we're really glad that Selco, and very grateful that Selco is on the is a partner of the hub. ICIMOD is there for us to really try and understand what are these different renewable energy solutions that will support these enterprises who can then become an example, really. So a sharing of best practices nationally as well as regionally. And I think that happens with a very strong commitment from the partners. And having said that, that kind of follows on to my third point, which is really around collaboration and public-private partnerships, right? That leverages sectoral expertise, financing tools, replication and scaling of these resilient business models. And finally, I think last but not the least is the responsible investment factor, right? So new investment tools that actually incorporate the engagement of local communities and can encourage entrepreneurship and ownership of these solutions and subsequently the business models.
Thank you. Thank you for really bringing us, the scope and the length through which Nepal community is trying to provide support to the entrepreneurs who is engaged with this program. And I really wanted to, I appreciate the fact that, while providing this sort of a support, some of the essentials that really have to be taken into consideration is really the whole idea of resilient business model development. It can be different for different enterprise because it's context-based, right? So that's very important. So, and the second point is really, that despite, yes, you have your individual needs and customization has to be done, but we have also commonalities because there is a shared interest and shared value among players. So that is also very important because it really highlights the need to collaborate. Important point is also knowledge generations, because that's something that really helps everyone. And this is what the platform like this is also a kind of a effort to sharing of the ideas and learning from each other's. And last but not least, you said about the collaborations, right? So you have touched upon a different range of activities and actions, approaches that things it's important to really consider. So from this learning, what do you think? Private actions that could be really proposed, and who can be the best, stakeholders or an actor that would really help us to achieve these actions?
Thanks, Sonu. I think there are the three actions that I would like to highlight, again, based on the work we are doing and will be continuing hopefully in the coming years. Is one is to facilitate the adoption of renewable energy solutions in Nepal, right? Especially at the enterprise level. Macro level, there are policies in place, but at the micro level, there is still, I wouldn't say hesitancy, but the adoption has been a challenge for a lot of enterprises, right? And this, again, based on our study, what we've realized is that the subsidies in renewable energy need to be designed and implemented and targeted towards impoverished and disadvantaged communities, right? There needs to also be, talking within the policy spectrum, there needs to be alignment between the tourism industry and renewable energy policies also, right? They cannot be compartmentalized. There needs to be some sort of connection between the three areas. And within this point is the perception and inability. I wouldn't say, I think inability is a bit harsh. The perception to understand that renewable energy production as well as its uses is beyond lighting and cooking, right? To really understand that it can be integrated with the design, again, going back to the design of business model, design of technologies, and that it can be used for much more. And within this point, finally, is the building capacity and capability, right? The ownership aspect really came out from the conversations that we were had with the stakeholders of the business ecosystem, the operation and maintenance of these solutions that come across. Now, the second big point is really strengthening platforms like the Tourovation Hub as an intervention, right? So this is the initiative that ICIMOD has brought forward, the REACH program has brought forward, is really very helpful for the enterprises that we're working with right now, and for others also, right? Because it really helps them rethink what their value proposition and the purpose is, which is really what the overall picture of this program is about. And then redesigning, again, business models, and also finally for the scaling and replication through regional participation. I think that's very important for these platforms to then come forward with.
Yeah.
And my final point is around access to finance. I couldn't emphasize this enough. It is very essential for enterprises that we work with to help them innovate and scale up their businesses. And who do I see in terms of helping with these three actions? It's really different stakeholders. Now, I'm just going to name the stakeholder types and not specifics. Is the government bodies, the banking and financial institutions, enterprises, organizations like ours, cooperatives in tourism and renewable energy, along with associations and international organizations. And having said that, at the Hub, we do have a very strong steering committee, and we're very grateful for them being on board. We have the Nepal Tourism Board, we have solar, wind, and water filtration companies, and a bank supporting us in our work. And likewise, we also work with stakeholders such as the government's Alternative Energy Promotion Center and Nepal Renewable Energy Program, which is FCTOs.
Yeah. Thank you, Padmakshi.
Thanks very much, Anu.
Yeah, thank you for really, helping us and the wider audience to understand, what Nepal Communitaire in its effort to promoting a Tourovation Hub is actually doing, and actions you propose is very practical, and you've identified, some of the stakeholders who will be very significant in really having this concept of resilient entrepreneurship is very much successfully, developed, and businesses, that can really benefit when it comes to tourism. So with this, I would really like to thank you, and because we have had some issue with Shripati while he was providing 3 actions. So can I quickly?
It's there in the chat.
Sure. Thanks, Anu.
Yeah.
Why? Chat box now.
So we will not take the call then? Okay. So Shripati's answer is here, it seems. So while we are running out of time, excuse for being very strict. So I will then hand over to Anu to really take this panel discussions forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anu, and thank you both the panelists as well. Now, I would like to invite Robinji. Robinji has been together with us, I think, since 2012, working together with ICIMOD. He's the CEO of SABA, which is a SAARC Business Association for Home-Based Workers. They've got presence in all SAARC countries, and also, really focus on making women entrepreneur come to the commercial business side. So I'd like to request Robinji to give a small introduction from your end.
Hi, good afternoon, Anuji. I'm not able to share my video because administrator needs to, I guess, allow to share. So anyways, I'll continue without it. So yeah, thank you for introducing Saba and me. So Saba, works with the marginal home-based workers. So home-based workers are people who work from home for income generation. So we are a community-owned organization. So it has, networks in, more than 23 districts of Nepal. So we work in various crafts. So we believe in creating value chain. We promote value chains using local resources and indigenous skills of the community members. So that's what we do. And I have been with this organization for more than 10 years now. So I look after the management of this social business organization. So with this, I'd like to hand over to Anuji.
Thank you so much. Now, the questions in terms of, what is the impact of climate change that you're facing and that enterprises are facing in Nepal, and these women entrepreneurs are facing in Nepal. If you could just give us the glimpse of the impact that the climate has on the entrepreneur, Robinji.
So our response would be very similar to Bhutan. Kinle madam, she highlighted the issues faced in Bhutan. We share similar geography as in Bhutan. In the context of mountain areas. So I'm sorry to be repeating similar kind of issues here in Nepal as well. So as I mentioned, we work with marginal communities in high altitude and in various topography. So in the areas that we work in, most of the community members, they rely on agriculture for their livelihood. So mostly in mountain regions and hilly regions. So arid landscape is one of the major issues we have. So harsh geographic locations, and they're connected with a very poor road connection. So poor infrastructure, that is one of the major issues. So water scarcity during dry season, that is one of the major issues. And weather changes, faced by this region is always a hurdle. But during monsoon, the heavy rain, that is another issue, and snowfall with with this changing weather pattern, that unannounced snowfall and hailstorms, and even droughts. These cause havocs to the community, who rely on agriculture. It really impacts on their production, and this flash floods, which creates, every year we hear about washing away of the roads, and so it creates hurdles to the communities to bring back their outputs, right? So logistical challenges due to landslides, these are some of the issues that the community face. So another one is, because of this, youth, and especially the male, they are forced to migrate, to the cities or even overseas. So that has led to the feminization of the agriculture in throughout Nepal. Wherever we go, it is the situation like that. So these are some of the issues that climate has impacted in the communities that we work with. Anuji.
Thank you so much. I think, it is true that production system has been really disturbed, and it is much more frequent than in the past year. So it's coming again and again, and I think that is really disrupted in the supply side of it as well, and for your business as well. So I think if that being the case, and if this climate is changing, and it has an effect of in everyone's business, and all the actors in the value chain, all the enterprises at each node of the chain are really suffering from these climate hazards. What do you think as an institution you would do to, or you have been doing, together? I think we've done quite a lot of work to make all these enterprise from the mountains, we worked in Darchula, for Kailash project, the remotest part of Nepal, to Taplichung, the remotest part from the east. in Nepal. So in Himalaya. So if that be the case, like, what do you think are major resilience building initiatives that you've taken to strengthen the resilience of the enterprises, especially the women members that you have? I think more than 2,000 women members are associated with you. So how do you strengthen those enterprises?
Yeah, climate really resilient enterprise is something that we learn from ICIMOD, and we are really grateful for ICIMOD for partnering with a social business organization like ours. So as I mentioned about Sabah, we are a community-based social business organization having networks in more than 23 different districts, and we have 61 different self-help groups, and we work in a model where we provide trade facilitations, so really needed for the business activities, so from production all the way to the market linkages. So this is how we work. And building resilience, for us, what we believe in is do not focus on one particular set of activities. So we believe in integrated business model, so relying on different activities, not only. So for example, so when we worked in this Kailas project in Darchula, so we went there to work in Himalayan nettle, or allo in local language. So production of allo is seasonal. So what we did was, we integrated other business nodes there. So they have very good agricultural products, like they have good beans, they have other spices over there, they have herbs there. So we integrated different businesses there. So not only farm, but also off-farm products. So we focus on building community-led enterprises. So when we work with marginal groups, not everyone has that entrepreneurial spirit to run one business enterprise. So we believe in grouping all these micro level producers into a group, and forming a enterprise which works on a cooperative model to address these kind of water related issues. So they have done various projects with the support of ICIMOD, rainwater harvesting, water collection system, and water storage, so mulching, and shade growing, and integrated farming. So these are some of our activities we have experience with the support of ICIMOD. And diversification of products and product range, not only in agricultural product, but also business diversification by inculcating non-farm products also. So these kind of interventions have helped reducing the risk in production. So environmental friendly interventions such as improved cook stoves, and mechanization of processing system. So these initiatives have helped in increasing efficiency in production. So, and also the it has reduced the consumption of water by recycling the water sources. So these are some of the initiatives that Sabah has taken in support of ICIMOD and other
Thank you
organizations
so
in
much.
the community.
Yes, thank you, Robin G. And I think, these are really grassroots great initiatives that we've done. We're running a little sort of time. So last question is who would be these three, or what would be three, important way forward that you would want us to take this forward to, and which organization should be doing such, work in terms of bringing these initiatives to a global platform like IPCC or COP26, or in that level regional platform as well. So what are the three key messages from your side?
So we like to call ourselves green enterprise. right? So recognition of organization like ours, there are several, there are very many green organizations. So the government needs to recognize organization like ours and our initiatives, right? So, and not only recognition, but they need to, the local bodies, the local governments, they need to replicate these kind of piloting initiatives that we have created. So that is only possible with the government's intervention. So the policymakers, they really, from central level to provincial level, different ministries, they need to take up this initiative of green enterprise, right? And green financing, financing for green enterprise, needs to be recognized by the central bank, and they central bank can uh, uh, encourage all these banking and financial institutions to finance for green enterprises, right? So, so another one is, see, for us to compete in this, mainstream market, it's always difficult because, we work in a very harsh climate, right? So we really need to position ourselves very differently. For that, certification of products produced in these kind of environment is very much needed. So certification can be done by the local entities, local government entities, and marketing of these kind of products. Whoever are marketing these products, even they need to be recognized and they need to be certified. So that certification has to come from the government level. I guess some agricultural certification has been done by Ministry of Agriculture. So this needs to be taken up in every level. So even for green enterprises, this certification is needed. Maybe a Ministry of Environment can do it, a Ministry of Forest and Environment, they can do it. So, and these kind of initiatives can be taken up by any kind of development agencies. So, so I guess, three things, these are the three things I would think can support climate resilient, business enterprises. Anuji.
Robinji, and thank you so much for being here. I think it is very important to have that certifications, the entrepreneurial orientation to people, as well as government to be really recognizing and promoting and certifying these green products and promoting it at a regional and an international markets as well, and helping build that ecosystem where businesses can flourish better. So thank you so much for all these insightful information from your end. As we're running out of time, I would quickly like to give this platform to Anulama for her announcement, and then we can go back to the virtual interaction session that we promised to all the participants.
Yeah. Thank you, Anu. Small announcement. We were supposed to have one of our important panel members from Bangladesh, but we just got the message saying that, his mom has been tested coronavirus positive and is now in ICU. So, while we're talking about pandemics and climate change, it couldn't be more closer than, what we are facing today. So he sends his apologies. So with this, I would really like to hand this over to Anu. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It's quite a sad news, and I think pandemic has really affected lives and livelihood of everybody, and it is not enough to really we couldn't stress it enough how important climate is and how important really to focus on climate and the changes that is happening, and to help lives and livelihood of people. And look at us, we're here we are in the virtual setting, otherwise we would have been together talking to each other. So with that, I would, since we cannot do the real talking, we'll do virtual talking with you all, and therefore we have the virtual interaction session that is prepared by Pratigya and Udayan, my colleague. And Pratigya, if you want to take this floor and make everybody participate, let's make it a little more interactive and interesting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Anudhi. And Officer for Resilient Mountain Solution here at ICIMOD. And with me, I also have Udayan Mishra, Knowledge Management and Networking Officer, supporting this interaction. I would like to thank all the speakers and and the panelists for sharing their experience. We have tried to address some of your questions in the chat box as well, but we'd still like to make it a little interactive, given the time constraint, a little interactive. So for this virtual interactions, I kindly request all the participants to use your mobile phone. I believe Udayan Dai is sharing the screen for this. Yes. So if you can see the screen, I believe you can see the QR code on your screen. So please open the camera on your phone and scan the QR code if that is possible, or else you can also open the browser and go to slido.com, as you can see there, and use the password 86221. I give you a little bit of time for this. So if you're there, I also request all the participants to, okay. So I hope you have scanned the QR code. So I would go with the question now. So then we'll be sharing the question. So the first question on your screen, I cannot see the question yet. Yes. Okay. So the first question is, what attributes are associated with resilient entrepreneurship? So please provide your answer using just one or two key words, that is the key characteristics or features to resilient entrepreneurship. Just for an example here, you can see innovative, flexible, and anticipatory decision-making. Likewise, what do you think are the key features? And you have 2 minutes to answer this. Yes, I can see answers coming in. Shockproof, innovation, flexible, integrative, inclusive. We only have 8 participants. Responsive, empathy, participatory decisions. We do have more time. Creative, shockproof, co-creation, that's coming in. Creative, locally led, diverse, forward-thinking, inclusive, market-oriented, robust. This is very interesting to see quite a lot of features that you would consider. Just 12 participants have participated. Okay, 10 seconds more. If there are any other characteristics that you'd want to add. Thank you so much. Thank you to all the participants. So we do have being inclusive, innovation, being adaptive, and empathy as the more highlighted ones among all these features. So we do consider all these features that has been mentioned here are the attributes that are associated to resilient entrepreneurship, but definitely being adaptive, innovative, inclusive are the key ones. So thank you so much to all the participants. We would now go with the second question. So second question on the screen. Yes. So the second question we have, rank the following actions in order of their priorities to strengthen the climate resilience of mountain enterprise. So this is basically ranking. We have 4 options here. We can see all 4 options are equally important, but how would you rank them if you had to? Like you can drag the answers up or down on how you want to rank it. So I would not read out the options. You can see it on your screen, and please rank it on how you would want to. How you would want to prioritize it. So you again have 2 minutes. We have 4 members participating. Enabling policy environment to incentivize green, resilient production and consumption. It's on the top list at the moment. Strengthen capabilities to develop and manage resilient enterprises. Access to green, climate finance, to innovate, de-risk and scale up climate resilient goods and services. We have 8 responses, 9 responses, 10. So we still think enabling policy environment to incentivize green, resilient production and consumption is the top rated one. 11. So we will stop in like 10 more seconds. Thank you so much. Thank you for your participation. So for this question, we have the enabling policy environment to incentivize green and resilient production and consumption is considered the most prioritized one from all our participants. Then strengthen capabilities to develop and manage resilient enterprise is the second one. Then we have access to green and climate finance to innovate, de-risk and scale up climate resilient goods and services. That's the third one. And lastly, we have access to technology to develop and manage resilient enterprises. Thank you so much for your participation, although we could not take in the questions and answers lively, but this has been really helpful in summarizing your perceptions and how we want to take our actions forward. So with this, I would like to hand it back to Anu Shrestha to take it forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Pratikya. Very, very interesting. And I think thank you all the participants for really participating and giving us this feedback, which has been very useful for us when we are also drawing a narrative in terms of what resilient enterprise should look like. Without much ado, I think I'd like to invite our summary speaker for summary and way forward, Mr. Mewang Gatson, Program Coordinator of REACH Initiative in ICIMOD, to summarize the whole session and also give us some way forward. How do we really want to take this session forward in national and international platform? Mr. Mewang, please.
Thank you, Anu. I hope I will able to do the justice in summarizing 2 hours of discussion in 10 minutes. And if I'm not able to, please apologize me. Maybe to begin with, I think the presentations and the discussion that we have had do acknowledge and recognize the resourcefulness of our HKH region, which actually supports hosts of niche value chains like tourism, energy, agriculture, labor, and hence rightfully referred to as the pulse of the planet. The presentation also revealed that MSME sector is a very significant economic sector that actually supports the livelihood in the mountains. And in terms of the share, the MSME actually constitute 95% of the enterprises in the mountain region under private sector, but largely operating in the informal sector. Moving on, I think the presentation also revealed that the mountain value chains are vulnerable to climate and other shocks that can easily get tipped off of the balance. For example, if our global warming is limited to 1.5 degree by the end of the century, the HKH will actually be warming up by 1.8 degree and lose about 1/3 of its glacier volume by 2100, triggering thereby untold adverse effects downstream. The presentation also pointed out that mountain entrepreneurs have little capacity to absorb, adapt, and transform their value proposition to respond to these external shocks. Interestingly, the presentation also outlined that the resilient mountain entrepreneurial identity is characterized by entrepreneurial orientation, market orientation, and management capacity. And it is these characteristics that actually determine enterprise ability to absorb, adopt, and transform its value proposition against climate change. From the ICIMOD's trajectory of engagement in developing resilient enterprises in the HKH region, we learned that it has pursued a broad range of approaches, each approach focusing on certain aspects. For example, inclusive value chain development has actually focused on niche and climate smart value chains. Green and resilient enterprises development has actually focused on strategic orientation and digital technologies, an entrepreneur ecosystem on network, platforms, hubs, and innovation. All is not bad, and interestingly, the presentation did remind us that the crisis and pandemics do bring opportunities, and the question is how prepared are we to tap this opportunity? From the panel discussions, we are given to understand that common climate impacts they have experienced, but with varying degrees of severity, actually include growing security concerns on food, water, and energy supply shocks. And they have also experienced disruptions of access to vital infrastructure services like supply links, either due to floods or snows, that actually aggravated the livelihood conditions and in fact resulted increased out migration. From the actions, again from the panel discussion, some of the actions undertaken by our enterprises in the region to strengthen their resilience include developing integrated business models, diversification of portfolios, cooperative and group models, integration of new and efficient technological solutions, processes, and building local ecosystem to nurture local intervention, innovations, and improve safety nets for vulnerable communities. Exploring opportunity, integrating RE&E solutions were some of the actions taken by the entrepreneurs in our region. For the future actions, what was also coming very clear was government to take lead role in creating enabling environment, provide platform to collaborate and learn from each other, have new technologies and make access to technology, nurture local innovation, adoption of RE solutions for productive use, targeted green financial solution, capacity building, scaling, and replication. With all these things as the way forward, the extensive presentation and discussions we actually have informed us to recognize and prioritize the uniqueness of HKH region as the pulse of the planet, and therefore protect the pulse by actually committing ourselves to undertake following things as the way forward. Number one is to scale up the social protection system because we have a lot of vulnerable people in the mountains, promote nature-based solutions, build inclusive and climate responsive financial landscape, strengthen resilient entrepreneurial ecosystem, support development of resilient infrastructures, and embrace sustainable and inclusive labor market as principle of approach. So I don't know if I have done my justice. This is what I could capture as I listen to the presentations and discussions we have had. Thank you. Over to you, Anu. Anu, you are on a mute.
So much, Mewanji. It is such a concise and concrete way forward that you've really come out with, summarizing everything. I know it is such a difficult job to be doing that, but then you've really put everything together and woven in one garland, and then it's all ready to give it to the international platform maybe now. So with this, I would really like to thank a lot of people here to thank. So if I've let me just try to do so. This program gave us a lot of insight on making climate resilient enterprises, and our experience from the panelists, information from the participants, and hope we could also address a little bit of expectations that came from the participants. And thank you so much for also posing those expectations, which also helped us really formulate our presentation accordingly. And I'm so glad that we were really to bring all these information together, and if we could take it to the global and regional platform that Nanki showed in her presentation, how we will be leading forward this evidences and information that is generated from here. And I would like to thank all the participants who believed in us and signed up for this, and are here with us. From to the panelists, thank you so much for giving us time and effort that you've put on to be here and to present your case. From ICIMOD side, I'd like to thank Nanki, Mewang, Arvindji for bringing us together, Nand, Anu for co-leading, Pratigya and Udayan for the interactive session, and also supporting the whole technical backstopping part, a bit of it. Sabina and Ujala for the documentation bit of it, Ray for ITC bit of it, and also everybody here, I think there are so many to thank. And from Gobeshona, finally, thank you so much for giving us this platform, and ICAD for also encouraging us to be part of this program, and also supporting us, and I hope we'll have more collaboration in future as well.